Minutes at the most.
Okay, so I'm going to get started here. My name is Adam Fisher. I work for the Maine State Library. I actually work for Linda Lord, who's a state librarian, retiring state librarian. I serve as the public information officer and the webmaster for the state library, and I also manage our repository. We have an institutional repository at the state library, which I'm always happy to talk with folks about. Probably too happy about that. But and I'm here today with Peggy Schick from Cornerstones. We're just going to talk a little bit about library programming, some best practices, and take you through the Cornerstones reservation tool, which will help you when you're getting ready to host a program at your library. So, why do libraries do programming? You know, there's four basic things that we came up with, and there may be others out there. We're open to your opinions about this, but you know, there's a concern about being aligned with your library's mission. Does everybody here have a mission? You know, a kind of a mission statement for your library, something that you're familiar with? Okay. Responding to the interests of their patrons, could be attracting new people through your door, and demonstrating public value in your community. Public value, as we talk about libraries, is something that's really evident as we look at the Pew survey results. You know, year after year, these results come out where we have a good understanding that the public really appreciates the services we provide, even if they know nothing about what we do or even come through our doors. We've done a great job historically of showing our public value in communities. Library programming is one way to kind of keep us out there and keep us in the good graces of the public and the people that provide funding to our organizations. So by the numbers, and we have great statistics provided by all of you. Hopefully all of you are doing your annual reports. But this is based on the annual reports that we receive from libraries. Last year there was over 36,000 programs from around the state, attracting about 500,000 different participants. The vast majority of them, well, the majority of those were programs aimed at children. There were some, you know, about 5% targeted at young adults, and the remainder were adult programs. We know that most programs actually have a fairly small audience, and I think that's a concern sometimes when we host programming is, has this been a success? We've only drawn a handful of people here. We know that it takes time and consistent effort to build an audience. So as you're starting with a program or a series, you may not start off with a full room to begin with, but over time, with the right efforts, you can build an audience. And we know that traditional forms of promotion just aren't working anymore. And I can get into some of the reasons behind that, and some of the ideas that we have as far as making things, you know, reaching your public in a different way. So earlier this summer, we actually used MELIBS to poll libraries on kind of what are the challenges that they've faced in doing programming, and what are some best practices that they've developed in response to that. And so really this presentation, you know, looks at some of the challenges that they identified, but also highlights some of the best practices along with a couple of other things that we've identified. Connecting with local schools is difficult. It's difficult to reach community members who are not library patrons. We've tried the local TV channel. That's not created much buzz. There's many choices that people have as far as what they're going to do. Some people prefer to stay home and watch the television, but any given night in certain communities, there's a lot of things happening, and so competing with those many different interests and the different noise that's out there that's from all the other programs that are happening, it can be difficult. Connecting with the newspaper, you know, that people send stuff into the paper and it doesn't get published, or it gets published inaccurately. There's reasons for that, some of which really aren't your fault. And but we can talk about some strategies there as far as overcoming that. Keeping attendance up, you know, lots of different diversions. People are not signing up for events that are limited in nature, and so you have surprise guests. This kind of sums it up, this quote right here. It always seems that someone will say that they had no idea that an event was occurring, despite the various emails and website and the posters that they do, Facebook. and signs in front of the library. I think the best way, as you're looking at planning an event, is finding a partner, a built-in partner, somebody that you can organize an event around. And it could be the local Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, it could be a church group or a preschool. We actually recently had a program where we had a number of seats open, and we connected with the local senior center that they're always looking for programming. And so they were a great partner for us in that event. So it's really identifying and building a program around a built-in audience whenever you have that luxury. So if you're looking at starting something new, it can be an open event, but it's an open event that's scheduled around somebody that's already confirmed and said, I'm bringing 8 people or 12 people. And so that it works really well. 4-H groups, it's another thing, school science clubs. I mean, as you're talking about the Cornerstones, there's lots of opportunities there. You just have to think about who who the interested parties are in your community to get them there. Your partner is going to serve as another tool for promoting the event as well. So if you're partnering with the local Rotary Club for a special event at your library, they're going to be promoting it to their members. They're going to be putting it on their Facebook page. And don't be afraid to take your programming off-site. Do any of you currently do programming outside of your library? You do? Is it children's programming? Well, yeah.
Where do you typically hold those? If you're off-site, where do you typically
Sometimes we partner up with the elementary school, which is right down the street. So we've had Math Science come, and we paid for the program, but we did it at a time when it was one of the on-site days for the school, the child care program that they have at the school. So we already had 50 people right off the bat.
Right.
And we invited the public to come too. So that was that's a good example of that. Because we don't have a big enough space at our library to do it.
Sure.
So they said, yeah, sure, you can use the gym.
Well, it's a different way of reaching an audience that might not ever come through your doors, introducing your services to them. And when we talk about partners, we're also talking about the partners that can help you put on the program too. I mean, I think one of the barriers to providing programming is just the ability to put something on, to pull something together. And that's where, programs like what Jared hosts with the Tech Petting Zoo, I'm sure all of you had a chance to hear about that. Jared comes ready to go. You just have to do a little bit of promotion. The State Library will help you out with that as well. So, or Cornerstones of Science. I mean, that's we're going to talk you through at the very end of this, how to reserve these science trunks, and really, it makes it really easy for you to put on a program even if you don't necessarily know an awful lot about science. So, developing an outreach plan is, once you've identified a partner, it's really a matter of trying to figure out all the different steps that you need to do before planning and before having your event. A little bit of planning, and who's your target audience, who's it going to appeal to, what's the best way to reach that audience. So you're creating marketing stuff for kids versus seniors. It's a whole different audience. So you need to think about different ways, or different newsletters or email groups, or to appeal to. Identifying who's going to be responsible for different elements of your plan too. So outreach is one of those things, but who's going to be planning for the food? Who's going to be talking with the speaker? Just having something on paper, an organizational meeting, and we know that a lot of libraries are very small. It may just be 1 or 2 people at the library. But if you have the luxury of a number of people on your staff that are going to be part of it, just sitting down and having a 15-minute planning meeting on talking about who's going to be responsible for what. So there's no assumptions, and sometimes that happens, about who's doing things, and the invite doesn't get sent to a certain group. And when should the strategies be executed? So, I give you an example of what we did earlier this spring. We had an evening discussion with authors about a recent gardening book. It was Gardening and Tuned by Nature with Reeser Manley. I don't know if any of you guys have had that program. They're out there, they work with the Extension, and they were actually really helpful to us in promoting the event. But we did outreach to gardening clubs in the area. So as we were planning the event, we made sure that we had that built-in audience there. We asked the popular local nursery to promote in their newsletter and social media. They put up posters. And the County Cooperative Extension, actually it was the statewide cooperative extension, sent out notices, which was great. So they promoted the event. but they also mentioned it after the fact in their brochures too, which again gets to the public value thing of, well, maybe people didn't attend the event, but they saw that the state library did something and they appreciated the fact that some people benefited from it. You want to give other people an incentive to promote your event too. So another recent event that we did at the library was also used as a fundraiser for the local animal shelter. That encouraged the local animal shelter, of course, to promote it. We set aside some seats there up front so that there are more generous donors at the animal shelter. Were invited, by the director of the animal shelter, and they felt good. They made them feel good that they were invited to this event at the Blaine House with this author and had a chance to listen through the talk. But it also exposed us, the library, to people that traditionally gave a lot of money to another organization, and that was good for us as well. So hopefully they felt a little bit better about our services and maybe might connect with us as well. So expose your programming to, again, people who might not otherwise come through your doors. And when two organizations, especially organizations of different missions, partner together on an event, it's more likely to be considered a news item. You want to give your audience a reason to attend, and refreshments are a powerful tool. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy, but just being able to put that on your poster and your marketing materials, for some people it makes a difference. We've had events where like the first 25 attendees received a free plant. It was just some little thing of basil. Didn't cost much of anything. In fact, I think it was donated by the local nursery. Donations will be accepted at the event for the local food pantry. We've done it for the animal shelter too. So I would say that this is probably the most innovative practice I can give you, and that's partnering with your local elected officials. You will not find people in your community that are more effective self-promoters than legislators and to lesser extent, city council members, town council members. But if you can get in their good graces and invite them to your library, but get them on your email list, and more importantly, get your content into their email lists. Many of them have developed really sophisticated lists of people that are targeted based on certain demographics, certain interests, and library is one of those things that really cuts across every party. Every legislator that probably in the state of Maine is going to be very happy and pleased to promote your program. So they have newsletters that they have to fill. Their staff are busy every week either writing a column for their members or trying to put out some kind of constant contact newsletter or update that person's website or update their Facebook page, and they're always looking for good content. And more local the better, and the less controversial the better too. I mean, Democrats and Republicans, everybody feels good about the library, and they know their constituents appreciate the library. And so if you can build a connection to your local legislator and feed them information and invite them to events, and while they're there, take lots of pictures of them and send them the pictures, because they'll post the pictures in the newsletter. A lot of times they have a lot of pictures around the Capitol. I know, because I used to work at the State House years ago, putting together these newsletters every year, and we'd have tons of pictures of these guys at the State House, but very little from their communities, because I had staff tagging around with them on the communities. So if the library, if you can provide them pictures and a little blurb, and it doesn't have to be more than a sentence or two saying, this is what the event was that you attended, in case you forgot. Make it as easy as possible for them so that they can send it to their legislative aide. Their legislative aide will take care of everything else. But it's promoting before the event, but it's also that little bit of follow-up after the event. Because sometimes you just don't, people might not hear about it before, but they'll see it, and if it's not part of a series, they're more likely to attend next time.
Jared, do you have a comment or question?
Just to reflect upon that, in Adam's early days, we had the premier event of the technology weddings at one library, and we invited the local representative and senator and a lot of local officials. And the press from that was heard down in Washington, D.C. So this is really, I think, really reinforced. Adam did a great job on helping us promote and make certain that message got out, but it really became a national
Right, and well, in that particular instance, we had done press releases about it. it didn't get run. We didn't. We did the media advisory the day of, and I don't get into the difference between press release and a media advisory. We did something after the fact. And really, we just couldn't get anything placed in the local paper, which was interesting. We just weren't successful at it for whatever reason. But the little self-promotion that the legislator did was enough to get us noticed there. So, and it reached a big audience, and so they're hungry for that. So I would encourage you, and that also applies to city councilors and selectmen. You just want to think about who the, I guess, influencers are in your community. Who are the people that like to be noticed also, and have a blog about themselves and what's happening in town, and make sure that they're your friend, and make them feel like a VIP, and they're very likely to pay off in dividends as far as their promotion of your events. The events calendars, probably most of these are already on your radar, but Maine Today Media that covers Press Herald, Kennebec Journal, Morning Sentinel, it's kind of a one-shot deal. You send it to their calendar, and it's found online. It's a good way for it to come up in community events, but it's also anything you send to them will be sent out in the community calendar, your paper. The unfortunate thing is it's usually just the day before, so you can send it out 3 or 4 weeks in advance, 2 months in advance to these places. And timing is really important when you're talking about promoting events. A lot of times if you send something too early, it'll get set aside or maybe tossed away because it's just not relevant. The newspaper's not going to write about something that's happening in your library a month from now. In fact, most often when we do get mentioned in the newspaper, it's generally the day before, and here we are sweating it out wondering, is anything going to appear in the paper? Is anybody going to know about this event? And it's typically the day before with the daily papers. The weekly papers, you have to be mindful of their schedules and making sure that you're not sending something out, the day of their deadline, or you can get it to them beforehand. So, so it's important to have a press list. Public broadcasting, they've got a great events calendar, and from what I understand, it gets a lot of hits. A lot of people are just looking for something to do in the evening, and we'll go to the public broadcasting events calendar, just kind of see what's happening. And so you may get people from outside your community through some of these larger ones. BDN has a great events calendar as well. And in addition, you can post your own press release to the Bangor Daily News website. Are any of you from the BDN market? Okay. You do, okay. Yeah, it's great. I mean, a lot of times it won't show up in the printed paper, but you can get it right on the homepage of the BDN site if you put a press release in, and they allow you to upload a photo. So we've had good luck with that. And sometimes, especially if you hit it on a Friday, it'll stay up all weekend on the homepage of the BDN site.
My town manager thinks there's something to the timing. She puts it at 10 o'clock at night, it'll show up better than at 11 in the morning.
I think she's right.
There's not as much going on then.
Well, and I think if you do it on Friday, you've got 3 days of coverage. Yeah, so, really, but a lot of times the stuff that you submit electronically to the BDN, more often than not, have you had any luck in getting it in print?
I don't think as much as I had several years ago.
Right, yeah.
So I'm not sure it's really hitting, but people won't read papers.
Right, that's right, yeah. So you can get it on the homepage there, it's great. Lewis and Son Journal, Maine Arts Calendar, the local Chamber of Commerce. Do all of you reach out to them for your programming? Yeah, it's great. I mean, if you can get the email address, most of them have community calendars. And again, it might not be, I don't know how much traffic these community calendars get, but again, it's being put online. It's more likely that people are going to find it, more likely that people searching for your organization are going to find good news about something that happened. Down East Magazine has a great events calendar, but the issue with them is that they'll take big events, and you need to provide about 6 months lead time. So we have a genealogy fair that's coming up and this summer, and we're in the process of getting something in to Down East Magazine now. You don't want to send it a year in advance, but if you send it 6 months in advance, that's kind of the sweet spot there as far as getting those big events in there. So if you have a real important gathering at your library for a centennial event, or that's really the time to do it in the place. Word of mouth, never underestimate the power of in-person marketing, and making sure that all your staff, your trustees, members of your friends group are engaged in retweeting, sharing your Facebook posts, putting the word out to their friends. If you're managing a library Facebook page, You know, when you put something up there, only a small sliver of the people that like your organization are going to see that in their news feed. But if you can get people to share it, you're going to spread the message to people outside of your community, or people to like it, or to more importantly, to comment on it. That's more likely to show up in the news feeds of other people that might not be as familiar with your programming.
One of the things, I don't know how many of you are on LinkedIn, but there is a group that I've been following for the last few months. It's called the Marketing Public Libraries Think Tank. And just a couple weeks ago, someone was talking about how they held a training session, or maybe a couple of training sessions for their friends groups to help them get online. So if they don't have a Facebook page, they don't have a Twitter page, to teach them how to do that, and then, you know, how to connect to your friends, how to connect to each other, how to connect to the library, and then how to use that. And then another, you know, a session on how to post something, how to put a photo with that, and to provide them, each time you have a program, every single time, send it out to your friends group with the description that they should post on their pages. You know, remind them how to make that connection, or send it in form of an attachment, so they can send it out to the email blast. But to have that kind of very specific training on how to use this group of volunteers that may think this is more difficult than it really is. But that, you know, that word of mouth that starts with your initial group seems to be one of the most effective ways to reach people.
Cindy.
And to elaborate on what Peggy is saying, I was recently at a conference in Colorado of the state library there, as well as librarians. They were hosting their very first Library Partner Summit. And one librarian was talking about they literally wrote out the script to be posted at the circulation desk. And you informed your volunteers and or whoever was working at the circulation desk, promote, promote, promote. So say this as you're saying, as you're checking in books or checking out books, and begin to directly engage with the very people who come to your library. And then the second point being is those that you know are influencers of the community who also are strong supporters of your library, have them, incentivize them to go out and ask people to attend the event. If they would be glad to help you. So your friends of your libraries group, inform them and give them a couple of talking points. People are not comfortable simply to say, yeah, we're going to have this event. But if you give them a couple of talking points about what the event is all about, they'll make it their own, and then they'll communicate it out. The second point I have on that is what Adam and Peggy are presenting are essentially zones of influence. Your patrons and the particular topic-specific groups that you can appeal to are the closest and most likely to come to your libraries. So as you put in press releases and go to the web and so on and so forth, you see you get further away from the core functioning group of the library, and it sort of becomes more scattershot as a result. And so really target what your program is about to those very people, and really look to your patrons and look to your circulation staff to be your promoters, because it's like a friend asking a friend to come to an event, and that's a far more powerful situation than a news release.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm kind of running a little bit short on time. I'm going to breeze through these, but basically, you know, having a press list of contacts, but not spamming them with too much. I mean, a lot of times they're not all going to want to get every notice about every children's program that you're having at your library. But if you have something big and something that's really newsworthy, make sure that you get it out to them. Just don't send them too much. Organize your information as easy as, make it as easy as for them as possible. So, you know, we talked about one of the frustrations that the library had was the fact that the news media was getting the events wrong. And we had that happen actually earlier this year, where I put out a press release that put the date of an event, but I wasn't mindful of the fact that the outlet that normally gets it does the date in the format of Tuesday, December, whatever, 10th, 2014. I put December 10th, 2014, and so what they had done was they had looked at the calendar, and there's November's date on there, or it was November in front of them, and they looked and they said, well, the 10th is on a Friday, and so I'm going to put it on a Friday, and so the date was right, but the actual day of the week was incorrect, and so it was something I had to own. I mean, although we sent it to them correctly, because we didn't make it easy for them, there was a mistake, and the news media, the newsrooms, and all types of news organizations they're much shorter staffed. I mean, I've been doing this type of work for about 15 years, and I would say that the number of reporters at these organizations is really about a third of what it used to be, and that's reporters and far fewer editors. There's fewer people to catch the mistakes, fewer people to write about the news. So if your news releases aren't getting picked up, it's probably not necessarily your fault. There's just a lot of stuff that they have and few people to do it. You should always be doing a new press release as part of a public event plan in the hopes that something will get caught out, and of course that can go up on your news feed, on your library if you have one. Send out at least 2 weeks in advance and structure it again so that editors can just cut and paste it. So take a look at how they put their news releases, when they do an event. Take a look at the format the newspaper uses and copy it, and just look for the way that they do it. And so if you've got a daily that does things, they have a style, a certain way they're doing it, follow that. Just copy it and structure your press release that way. It's an example of a press release. You can find examples online, but press release, that's, again, something you send out 2 weeks in advance.
And we will have this presentation on the Cornerstones website by the end of next week, so you can find it there too.
Yeah, we try to put a kind of something creative at the beginning, but most of the time it just gets stripped out. They're most interested in this, but so sometimes if you're sending something shaved down to your local paper, it could just start right there. And again, the intent of this is to get it into the newspaper so that the newspaper promotes the event in advance. Media advisory. This is an optional format for a program announcement. It's sent out a couple of days in advance, and the audience is not to get it in the newspaper. The audience is to get the reporters there. So it's a little bit different format: who, what, when, where, and then the basics of your press release below that. So. But when they see media advisory, they know, oh, this is an event the library thinks is important enough so that they're going to invite the news media there. Again, reserve these for bigger events, bigger announcements, that type of thing. Email, we harvest email through our website, so we have a place where people can sign up for information about genealogy events, and we'll probably have more types of events there, and it's a great tool to use for your library. Opting in versus opting out, we actually have been sending out to all of the people that we have email addresses for. We decided to go the opt-out route, which was we just identified everybody we had an email address from, and then when they said they didn't want to get our email address, their emails anymore, we took them off the list. But we started from that perspective. Some people would prefer to ask permission first. Facebook events feature, if you're not using that, it's again a helpful thing. It's you can see it's right here, offer event. So you set it up there, and they've got a special template for the header. This is in the thing. This is an example of using that feature so that it fits correctly. And then that's a Facebook image. If you can, whenever you're using Facebook, if you can put images along with the post, it's more likely to be seen. We think it's more likely to be seen because it's not an exact science, but I believe that you're more likely to have your events seen in news feeds of other people when you have images associated with it. At the program, make sure that you try to capture the people that attended. Sometimes with children programming, that's a little bit more difficult, but you can get the parents' email addresses so that they can be notified about other events. Survey attendees. So how did you hear about the event? I'm always curious about that. What types of programs would you like to see in the future? Take pictures and releases when appropriate, especially when you're dealing with kids. Get quotes from presenters and audience. And afterwards assess what went well, what didn't. Follow up with some of the people that you might not have seen through the door for the first time. And that's just spending 2 minutes writing a little postcard or whatever and putting in the mail to them if you have their address. sending pictures, quick write-up, and again, it's a picture, it's not, not even a press release, it's just a picture with a statement about what happened, send that to the local paper. Again, the weeklies are probably the best way to get that stuff published. And make sure that you send a thank you note to your presenter, because that's important. So I've got a sample plan in here, but we're kind of running short on time. We've got about 10 minutes left and want to take you through the Cornerstones thing. But there's a sample plan in here of the types of visual media outreach. And let me just pull up the Cornerstones site now so you can
Well,
see.
Adam's pulling up the online Science Trunk link. When we're talking about photos, I just wanted to put in a request that when you are doing a science program, especially if it's a hands-on science program, whether it's kids or adults, take a photo, even if it's just with your iPhone. It doesn't have to be a professional photo, and send it to us, because we can't have enough photos of people doing science. In fact, in the video that we saw in the beginning, the kid within a lobster suit, that was a lobster suit that's in our lobster science trunk, that was taken by, I think was that Liberty?
Yes.
Library? That was not a professional photo, but it's very usable. So send us all of your photos.
Don't they have to get permission?
What?
Don't they have to get permission?
From kids, you do have to have, yes, you do have to. Yes. So if you have there's a photo release form that you can just make one up, but they have them online as well.
You don't have to get permission for adults?
I think you probably do.
Yeah, I think you do.
I'll tell you, my practice is if you're taking a shot of a group of people in a public setting, I typically just go with it. I mean, it used to be that you'd want to get a release, because if you put something in print and you printed up 10,000 copies and somebody objected to it, then you have to get rid of all those copies you printed up. But with the web, if you're putting it online, somebody objects to it and they really have a problem with it, you just pull it down. That's so if you really want to be courteous, you can say, geez, we're going to be taking some photos. Does anybody here object to being part of a group photo here? Now, if you're zooming in on one particular person, that may be a little bit different scenario. You might want to ask permission to use something like that. But if you're taking a picture of a larger group, it's pretty much, and it's in a public setting, it's pretty much assumed that it's okay.
We did that. We did the group question when we'd had some video that was also in that video that we saw of kids running around in the library using one of the science trunks, and we just asked in the beginning, does anyone have a problem with it? And no one did. So
I do that, but I also, if I have a large group, I'll take a picture with the presenter facing the camera, with the back of
right,
and that always works.
I do hands.
right, and that's actually what I mean. Those are the best pictures, and we've got something close up so you can really see what was going on with the activity. Did you have a question in the back?
I just wanted to know if it was okay to use the Cornerstones of Science logo in our promotions.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because what I was thinking is that after, when I get back to the office, for everybody who's here and any of our other regular library partners, you should have really good, sharp, low-res and high-res copies of our logo. So I'll make sure that you have those. Thank you for bringing that up, because I mentioned that today.
Along the same lines of that, I was at a marketing meeting last week around the candidate awards. And one thing librarians said would be useful is, the high-res logo, a blurb that you want included on everything, if there is such a thing.
Yes.
That sort of go-to information.
Yes, I did. I will do that. I'm so glad you said that. I wrote one up yesterday, and I don't think I brought it with me. But yeah, I mean, because we've got, it's a challenge to describe what we are in one sentence, and we have our tagline and we have our mission, but we've got another statement that I think is more effective. So if it's at the bottom of a flyer or something, what Cornerstones is.
Yeah,
You're awesome. Thank you
provide
for bringing that up.
options.
Yeah.
Just say, longer release.
Right.
this
Right.
thing.
Yes, I will send that to everybody who's here. Thank you. So I wanted to show you our online science trunk reservation system. So for those of you who haven't used a trunk before, we have close to a dozen different topics. The one in the back is the bugs and butterfly trunk, and it comes in that size trunk, and they're designed to have about 40 hours of activities for kids typically between the ages of 7 and 12. And Adam helped us build a system so that you can go online and see what's available. And you can go on, so this is available from the Maine State Library website. So you can go on and see what programs are available. So here are the different topics of trunks that we have. We'll be adding soon a space trunk, and we'll also be adding a brain science trunk. Those are being developed right now. So if we just go into bugs and butterflies, if you go into each one of these, you'll get a little description and a photo of what's in there. And then when you decide which one you want to reserve, you go on to, programs and availability. So do I go to here? In terms of availability, okay. So down below, we don't have many reservations in here right now, but below the description is a calendar. And when there are trunks that are reserved, there will be blocks of time that will tell you when it's not available. And then you can put in a request for a reservation. And that request you'll get when you fill out the information, which includes when you want the trunk delivered to you. These are delivered if you're part of the library interloan delivery service. That's how they will come to you. So they'll come on the days that you typically receive deliveries. And if you're not, we can arrange with you if another neighboring library is on that service and you're not, you want to go pick it up at that library. If they're willing to do that for you, you can come pick it up from us, or if we're going to be in the area, we can drop it off. So we'll figure out how to get it to you. It's available to everybody. So you fill out everything here, put in your request. You'll get a confirmation that says, we received your request, and then you'll receive another one in a couple of days after we've looked at it and just made sure that, yes, it's available. Sometimes we take them offline for different purposes if we've got one going on the road or something like that. But so that system is there, and it is now live on Maine State Library, and I'll get it up on our site next week. So. And on there's the trunk use policy. There's also some frequently asked questions. They're pretty simple, but there's also an evaluation form that comes with every trunk, and we want to make sure that you fill those out and send us your feedback. So, if something in the trunk is no longer working, or like in the back, one of the blow-up toys I noticed had a little leak in it. So that sort of thing we want to know, but especially how did you use it? What was the most useful? What recommendations do you have? What thoughts do you have on additional topics for trunks? We want your feedback every time you borrow one. You had a question?
How long do libraries keep the trunk?
Typically, it depends on how busy we are. Like last summer when there was the fizz boom pop, if that was the summer reading, which was science, our trunks were really busy. But typically about 3 weeks seems to be a good time. We recommend you take about a week from the time that the trunk is delivered before your program, so you have time to go through it, because they have quite a bit of information in there, and you can decide which activities are going to work the best for you. And you might want to keep it an additional week, so you have the program 1 week and again another week, and then send it back. That's typically what people do. Anybody else? Okay. Do we have wrap up?
Well, I mean, I think the other thing to mention with regard to this is, so when you put in a reservation, you're going to get an email. Your reservation's not going to show up on the calendar as soon as you put it in there, because it goes to Cornerstones. They have to approve it. And then when you are ready to send it back, the item that will come with your trunk, the sheet of paper that comes in there, will give you instructions on how to. There's actually a second form that you fill out to make sure that it's sent back, and so and that's part of the feedback as well. So you can submit your feedback and notify Cornerstones that it's coming back, and all used in the same form. There'll be instructions that'll come in the
right, and we'll definitely want your feedback on how this system is working. We've thought through it, but probably, once we get to using it and you're going through it, if something is awkward or doesn't, just isn't clear, let us know and we can adjust it.
Great. Well, so I'm at the State Library. It's Adam Fisher. The presentation today will be on the Cornerstone site.
Yes.
But the State Library always welcomes the opportunity to help libraries in Maine promote their programs. So if you have something special that's happening, let the State Library know, because we'll put it on our Facebook page. We'll put it on our Twitter account as well, and do whatever we can to support you. And if you need help connecting with your local legislators or help writing a press release, you just need a little bit of guidance, we're there to help. So connect with your consultants, but connect with me. Let me know. They'll connect with me. We just want to make sure that we can help you in any way. So, thank you very much.